is the Pegasus Podcast, presented by Night Sports Now. UCF news, views, and a few hot takes. Now, here are your hosts, Bailey Go Knights Adams and Christian Charge On Simmons.
Welcome into episode 258. Be sure you're following us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at ByCASimmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. You can also email us at PegasusPodcast@ksn@gmail.com. We're back. Sorry for being gone last week. We weren't planning on doing that, but I flew out to Indianapolis for the NFL Combine on Monday night, so we were planning on doing the podcast Monday during the day, and then Christian woke up, I think, sicker than I've ever been in my life, so, I mean, knock on wood, but Christian, how you feeling?
Feeling great. Just to provide a little context, I really liked that you didn't say much about when I tweeted that we weren't doing the podcast. I very much threw you under the bus when it was entirely me. Like, I was like, Christian's sick, Bailey's out of town. It didn't matter if you weren't in town. There was no point last week where I could have ever done this podcast. And we just acted like that was on obstacle as well. So I went to Las Vegas for the first time in my life for no reason at all. I just wanted to go, and it was very fun. I made a lot of money, proved the casino wrong, and I came back with flu, strep throat, and pneumonia all at the same time.
That's an insane combination. And my reply to you when you told me all three of those things, I said, Vegas cooked you.
Yeah, it was, I definitely pretty sick. I would not recommend doing all three of those at once. I think if you're going to try it, I would try one at a time. But we're doing, I almost had to cough, but we're holding it back. I was about to say, we're going to see how well this podcast goes, because I've been on a lot of meds, and I am feeling better, but the cough is still something. So we're working through it.
I almost thought, too, I was going to be like, well, we'll see how this podcast goes, because we haven't done it now in 2 weeks. As I was like, oh, there might be some rust we got to shake off. As if I wasn't on like 3 podcasts last week when I was in Indianapolis for the Combine. Like, I've been talking into a microphone as recently as last Friday. So I don't know.
It always feels like when we miss a week, though, it feels like we haven't done the pod in centuries. I don't know why.
I feel like you and I stopped being friends for like the last 2 weeks. Like,
yeah,
we barely talked. You were dying, but like...
No, I thought about it too. We really did not talk much, and I chalked that up to a combo of me not having the strength to get out of bed and you covering, all kinds of things in Indianapolis.
Very
it's good to be friends. It's nice to know that that's the limit of our friendship. Is like, I get sick and like, it's over.
Like, I was texting you yesterday, and I was like, wait, I haven't really talked to Christian much lately, have I? Yeah, but true to this offseason being exceedingly long already, even though it's March 3rd, and it being kind of a boring offseason so far ever since stuff was happening, we didn't really have much to talk about this week, so we asked you for questions. We're doing a mailbag, and boy, do we have a lot of questions to answer. Some of them good ones. Actually, let's just say all of them are good ones. Sure, I guess. Some of them are horrible. I hate them all.
Some of them are not good. And we're going to answer them because we care about you guys. But yeah, some weird things.
Did it feel like to you this is the least for a mailbag? This is, I know we haven't done more than like 4 or 5. Is this the least number of football questions, or the fewest number of football questions we've gotten, and like the most non-football questions we've gotten?
Yeah, it turns out all it takes is UCF football being bad for multiple seasons for people to finally ask questions about other stuff. But getting multiple baseball questions was absolutely and not something that I was necessarily in favor of. But here we are.
I'm in favor. I'm wearing a baseball jersey right now.
Look at that.
I was at the game yesterday wearing my other baseball jersey. All right. You want to dive into these? Because we have 19 that we have to get through.
Well, knowing our typical cadence and how we answer these, I'm sure this podcast won't take 6 hours given the number of questions we have. So, I guess we should go ahead and just jump right in.
Let's do it. This one is the first one is from Randy at RNDYTL. I don't know if that's like, I couldn't say that. So here's the question. Let's be real. Is anyone missing JRP's speed in the outfield as much as I am? No. Next question. I don't know. Do you have anything to say?
No, I'm not missing it. Plus, he's been, for some reason, JRP has been memorialized in the stadium with like a whole freaking display for him being a 2-sport athlete. So I'm never going to feel like I'm missing JRP, because I could go to the baseball stadium tomorrow night for the Florida game and take in his presence right there. So, yeah. Yeah.
Also, their outfield, I think, is like really good. And their center fielder yesterday made a diving catch. And I was like, wow, that was good. And didn't think like, oh, wonder if JRP would have gotten that.
Yeah, can any of them truck a Kent State linebacker? Because if not, then it's a
probably. Not, no offense to Kent State, but I don't know.
The one thing I said,
throwing his head at those guys.
The one thing I said for this podcast to you before we started recording was that I can't really laugh because then I start coughing, and we're off to a horrible start on that front. But it's
great. Let's move on. Sorry, Randy. No, I don't miss JRP in the outfield. He's good. He's decent, but he's better at baseball than football. Mike at McGuckin M6 says, would you prefer the spring football calendar move to the summer, have one preseason game against an FCS team replacing the spring game, then jump immediately into the season? No cupcake games allowed in the season, P4 out of conference games only. Thoughts?
I love that you charged full steam ahead with his name, then got one syllable in and realized you weren't sure what was going to happen and had to like rev back up on that. But
I don't know why that happened, but I can't read.
Sure, we can answer that. So this one's interesting because regardless of what we'd prefer, it sounds like for college football, spring football is genuinely moving to summer. Like that's something that's going to happen. That's been reported that things are moving that way. And it's less about anything regarding like the FCS game and more just, I don't know if you've noticed if you're a college football fan, but the calendar is a little bit crowded. Every single thing has to happen in December. And the idea is that if they do away with spring ball and they kind of move to like NFL style, like summer OTAs, and you have like a summer camp in place of spring ball, then you don't have to have a portal window while everything is going on. Like it's not like guys are hitting the portal while the playoff is happening, while coaching changes are happening like we had this year and have had the last few years. And the reason that happens in the first place is because like it's the dumb part of this we always forget, where this is still technically tied to school and players have to act. They all have to be enrolled by an early January deadline to participate in spring ball. So if you move that to summer, then there's no reason to have that window then, and you could just have a spring transfer window and give teams some breathing room. That probably helps high school players too, because this makes coaches less likely to like recruit over high school guys to get portal guys right then. So that part's probably happening. I know for a long time people have talked about the idea of, oh, there's the FCS game should be like the spring game. I've never really been big on that because it just wouldn't feel the same. Like it would not feel like an actual bounce house game that would quickly turn into an exhibition. And I don't know. I don't hate the FCS openers as much as everyone, just because we're sickos and I like to sort of have like an ease-in game where we just sort of learn about the team for the year before we do anything crazy. But I don't know.
I think that's part of it, but I also think I'm not like in any rush to kill FCS programs. Like I would like for the FCS level to survive in some form or fashion, and I don't know if we're eliminating those games. And I don't know, I just can't see it under this question's premise. Like if that's a preseason game, are teams still paying the same amount of money for a preseason game as they are for these bye games? I don't know, and I don't want to kill the FCS level. I want people to be able to play football still if they want to. And
if you don't know, like if you're not aware to that level, like FCS programs, a lot of them entirely fund their programs through that check they get once a year for playing an FBS team. Like that is like how they fund their program. So if those games do go away, which like I feel like might happen eventually with the way college football is moving, I don't really know what FCS programs are going to do because they literally need that check.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think like you said, this is kind of where things are going. Not necessarily the FCS element of it, but more so football calendar shifting into the summer, which is kind of like the NFL, basically. I think you and I, you were sending me an article a couple weeks ago now, talking about that potentially being something they're talking about, is doing more of like a mini camp OTA style thing in the summer rather than the whole spring thing. And we're seeing with UCF not wanting to really have a spring game this year, we're already seeing teams do that. And I overheard some people talking at the Combine about other programs. I think I heard an Ohio State reporter say they're not sure yet about this spring game, but if they do have one, it might be the last one because everything's changing.
This has been a super interesting year where literally out of nowhere, like all the Power 4 programs, it's like they quietly all decided, let's all just not have spring games, and then we'll throw that out. Like it was like a thing where because Matt Rochelle at the Sentinel broke that UCF was considering not having one. And at that point, there had been like a couple programs that had announced they weren't doing it. And I was like, that's interesting. We'll see what happens there. And now it is like a ton of Power 4 teams have said they're not doing it. And I don't know. And that's partially, I think, prep of they all understand spring ball's going away pretty soon anyway. But I don't know. There's part of me that's nostalgic about it. And I think it's more like, I think I'm more nostalgic for the routine of it than what we actually would get from it. Because spring games haven't been legitimately interesting in years at this point, but it's going to be an adjustment, like I think where it's really going to hurt me is like December B, because every time, and I acknowledge that this is me and my mental health concerns, but like every time I'm leaving the stadium for the last time at like that end of November game, I'm always like down. And I remind myself like, well, it's not till next fall, like a few months, I'll be back out here for the spring game. And so that'll be the sad one like that. But that's, that's kind of it.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess if the calendar gets moved around to the point where there's a spring window, we'll still have stuff to talk about in the spring. So I think like the elimination of a spring game or a spring practice window, we'll still have stuff to talk about at least. Like that would be probably the thing that I would miss the most if nothing was taking its place. But
I think my request to UCF would be that they like make a weekend where I can just come sit in the stadium and just feel at home for a little bit.
For fun?
Yeah. There doesn't really need to be anything on the field.
I'm just sorry. Now my mind wandered into like, what would that event look like? Like, what could they do? I don't know. Maybe it's something to think about. I guess I don't have to do anything, but like, I don't know, like put a movie on the board. I don't know.
Just play the best game from the previous season on the Jumbotron.
Well, I guess TCU would be the only one, but just play the second half of the TCU game.
This year, I'd be okay with them. Well, Frost is back, so they could play like a 2017 game. This is actually, here's a question of UCF.
That's kind of what they do with the alumni tailgates.
This is such a stupid idea, but say that UCF announced that they were like, in lieu of a spring game, this is so dumb and they would never do this, but they're like, in lieu of a spring game, we're going to replay the War on I-4 from 2017 on the Bounce House Jumbotron. Come on out, just hang out in the stands. We'll have some fun. Maybe Frost comes out and like talks on a mic at some point. How many people would go to that?
I think there are enough sickos that I think it would be decent.
That's kind of what I think too.
Decent turnout. Yeah, I don't know.
I remember when UCF, I was always really impressed when during COVID, UCF had the open practices, which they did not want to have. It was just that there was an NCAA dead period and it was because of COVID, and it was UCF's workaround of that's how you could get recruits to practice is, well, practice is open, so anyone could come. And like UCF would not publicize it. It was like they would put one post on their Instagram story being like, practice is open. And that was it. Yeah. And there would be like 2,000 or 3,000 UCF fans at every one of those. And I was always so impressed. Like, I'm like, how did you all even find out?
I almost think like, I'm getting way too in the weeds on this, but I'm just thinking about it now, is like they could do some sort of like spring fan fest where it's like, I don't know, they get, I don't know, Nitro's out there taking pictures with the kids. They do like, I don't know if they can do the equipment yard sale like they were doing for a while there, but like some kind of, and this is basically completely stolen and borrowed from the Rays. It's like the Rays do they do a charity yard sale every year at their fan fest where it's like they have their old promo or like old giveaways or whatever that they just have too much stock of. They put them all on sale for $5 each. You can get like old bobbleheads or old whatever. So like do that. You can have a section where, I don't know, just do different things and have like a spring fan fest just to have fun with the fans.
And to be fully clear,
this has no benefit really for UCF. It's just the fans would have fun. And then UCF would be tired of doing it.
To be fully clear, when Merschel reported that UCF was considering cutting the spring game, he also reported they were considering having something in its place, like whether that was an open scrimmage or open practice. Yeah. So like there might be something like that. We haven't heard about it yet, but who knows?
Right. I was thinking more future, like if they completely eliminate spring practices, then they have to have like, they not have to have, but they could have an event or something.
But, I think feel like a block party or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Next one.
I like the idea. We have a future question coming up that's like, what can UCF do to improve its brand? And so far what we've come up with is like, I don't know, like, just like spring.
Let's have a
party. Let's have a party.
Party for everyone. Clay Pasco at Clay Pasco, Clay_Pasco. Eric DeSalvo revealed that UCF is due for some new uniforms. If you could reform/tweak any uniform in our lineup, what uniform would you choose and how would you change it? Who wants to go first? I feel like this question was more for you than me.
Is who wants to go first the proper thing to say when there's two people involved and you're one of the people?
Probably not. I probably should have said, who do you want to go first? Like, would you prefer that I take it first? I didn't really have a very elaborate answer.
I would take the uniform that I would tweak would be light mode.
That's what I said too.
What I would do to it is I would take it as it is now and I'd take the numbers and I'd switch them from gold to black. I would take the knight head on the sleeve, which does look cool, and I would change it to a Pegasus. And then I would change the white to pewter. And that would be how I would tweak that uniform.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. But so I have all these questions written out. There it is. Light mode. Make it pewter. So we have the same answer. I guess we can move on. I don't know, man.
Oh, no.
That's it. know I made you laugh. That's a bad thing for this podcast today. But yeah, I don't know.
That's not healthy, man. That's not healthy that we both immediately went to the exact same
I thought
thing.
you were going to have, like, that's why I was like, I didn't really have a serious, like, well, I guess it is a serious answer, but I didn't really have an elaborate answer. I thought you were going to have, like, as the resident uniform guy, you were going to have, like, I would do this, this, and this. You did say that, but it ended up being the same idea as mine. And I use 5 words to do it.
Well, my honest answer is it's a set. So if you're going to tweak something on one, then you need to tweak it on all of them, so I'm excited to see what they come up with. But yeah, I like light mode. We didn't see it this year, but I do like light mode. Would trade it for pewter very quickly.
Yeah. All right. The next 3 are from Mike at MD Knight 2016, longtime listener of the pod, longtime supporter of the pod. We appreciate you. And as a longtime listener of the pod, you know what we've been saying every time someone tries to sneak in multiple questions. You didn't even try to sneak in multiple questions. You just did it in 3 separate tweets. So somehow we've decided we're going to answer all of them.
You know what part of the problem is we always tell people stop asking multiple questions, but then we don't enforce it in any way because then we just answer all their questions.
Listen, whatever. I don't know. Stop doing it, but we're probably not going to do anything about it. First one is for both of us. It's for the pod. Who would you both want/think UCF to gets to replace Johnny Dawkins? No one. I'm still on Dawkins' side until the end.
I really hate that we're at the point where we have to kind of talk about this topic because we have not seriously ever been at this point. I know the fan base has been there at times, but this is the first time I feel like we are seriously at that point. And I did a new thing starting about a month and a half ago where I just stopped acknowledging that the men's basketball team exists in any way on Twitter because I just was so sick of getting into I have not said a word publicly about that team in probably like a month and a half at this point. And I this will be like my first breaking of that. I don't think if they move on from him or if he retires, which I'm leaning towards, I'm wondering if he's just going to retire. I don't think there's any sort of clear answer on who you'd get to replace him. I've seen the names that UCF fans like, and it's reminded me how foolish many UCF fans are, especially when it comes to men's basketball. My thing about this is, we don't know what kind of pool they'd be working with if this job does open. This is a job that's opened 3 times in the last 30 plus years. This is not like,
it's just crazy to think about.
Yeah, given the lack of success really ever and investment, it's very funny. This is a job that this should be a job that's a revolving door.
You got some job security.
Literally, I think it's 3 times in 35 years this job is open. I don't know because I don't think this is a job that's going to be highly valued. I don't think this is a job that up and coming coaches. That's always the buzzword. Fans on Twitter, they got to get a young up and coming coach. And I'm like, is that just what ageism? You're just Dawkins is old and a new coach will be young. I don't understand that at all, but it's not like the hot coaches coming up. This is not a job that's interesting. There's nothing exciting about, would you like to play a schedule where you have to play all the toughest teams in the country for every game? And we're also not going to give you money. That's not super appealing. And we talked about when the football job opened about the idea of get someone who knows how to do more with less than someone who's used to working with resource constraints. But even that doesn't work as well for the men's basketball job because there isn't really I don't know how you can find someone who knows how to work within resource constraints, but also plays nothing but teams that are insane on their schedule. If you were to go down to the mid majors to find someone, they're playing teams who are at a similar resource disadvantage. So I don't know what you look for. I genuinely, there is no clear roadmap here. And that's part of what makes me annoyed that we're at the point where this might happen because I have very little faith in a hire being made that's going to produce really any better results than you're seeing right now.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny to me, the names that I always see thrown out by UCF fans are always coaches that have had past scandals. Is that just because they'll come cheaper or there's more of a chance they need to revive their image at a Big 12 program, but then they'll just, we won't get the 3 openings in 35 years thing with them because if they have any sort of success with UCF, they'll be gone in 2 years, which I guess would be good. You'd like to see some success, but I just don't know. I just don't know if you'd see success. And I do think that if Dawkins gets another year, which I think that just depends on how they close here. I don't think it's a done deal that he's gone. I think that, maybe they win one of these last 2, maybe they make some noise in the conference tournament. I don't know. I do think that things have the potential to get a little easier next year because next year everything is switching over to the rev share model, which unlike in football, I do think that is going to reduce the spending we've seen in college basketball because now that there is a cap that teams have to
stay within the whole rev share. I think it's like 22 million or something that like, that's basically what you get for your athletics department. And you have to figure out how to divvy that up among teams. Now there will still be NIL outside of that. And like some teams will find a way around the cap because of course, but I do think that will curb what we've seen these last couple of years of like teams UCF is playing where they paid for a player, what UCF is paying for its roster. So like things might get a little more even, and I'd be curious to see what that looks like. And maybe that makes things better for UCF, but I don't know. I think fans are operating under this delusion that this is nothing we haven't said before. Like I said, this season's been really bad. And we said at the start of the season that, well, they have a winning record. Let's calm down. But we said at the start of the season,
let's calm down. You say it to yourself,
to myself, but well, because it sucks because there was a point in time this season where it looked like they really were headed for the tournament, and then it wasn't like they just didn't make it. Like the wheels came off, and that's been really frustrating. But we talked about when they assembled this roster that it was going to be a risk, and it was either going to work really well or it was going to not. And I think that they have the talent to be a really good team. And my 2 cents, which maybe people, who are more in the know can contradict me, but it has felt like this team has just not been equipped to handle adversity. Like when things get bad, they just kind of fold. And I don't think that's a huge surprise given how transfer heavy this team is, given the strategy they went for building this roster. We knew that was the risk. The alternative was just not having players who were good. So I don't know. I don't know what the plan is for UCF going forward in this conference to be regularly competitive in basketball. I do see a reality where say UCF like scrapes together a winning record this year, like just barely or like just below. Like I do see a reality where they move on from Dawkins, and we're talking about their 2 winning seasons to start Big 12 play is like the good old days, because I think it can get way worse than it is right now.
I think I told you about it briefly because I think it was when you were in Vegas, but I gave like a statement, or like more of a quote, to a UCF student reporter. I don't even know if it ended up getting used or not, about Dawkins and whether or not I still support him, whether or not like what my thoughts on the basketball team. And like I said, in that quote was basically every year feels like, with the way UCF set up, every year is a roll of the dice. You put together a roster you think that can compete. This year we saw it with like some guys who were on some second chances, had some issues in the past, and really talented team. But I think like kind of like what you were saying, like I think structurally there was something wrong with the way this team was built. Yeah. And they got better offensively, but it wasn't the same kind of defense you'd seen from a normal Dawkins team. Structural issues on how it was built. You try again next year. Because I think that's kind of where UCF is. College basketball is that way to an extent, but I think UCF even more so because it's harder to build with the lack of money and everything being put in with NIL. Any of these talented guys who have had good years statistically can transfer and play somewhere else. So I don't know. I'm never really going to be one to be quick to push Dawkins out the door. I would like to see him stay and see what they can do next year. It's kind of just how this program is at this point.
My take's been the same as it has been this whole time, is that I'll be out on Dawkins when I genuinely believe there's a better option who's going to come in and they'll be better. And I still just don't really believe that. I don't have a lot of faith that they would find that person who is going to elevate this program in a significant way. Now, it'll be fine because if he does move on, they'll get a new coach and we'll get the warm, fuzzy feelings of having a new coach, and it'll make for like an off season where, we'll talk about what he can do. But at the end of the day, and it's the same old thing I've said 95 times on this podcast, is all of you who are angry about the season and who want the team to do better, and you really don't. I know you, and I know you don't, because for them to be better would require money UCF doesn't have, which means they would have to take money from football. And none of you want that. And that's fine, but you can't have it both ways. So it just kind of is what it is at that point.
And obviously, like it's like this at a lot of places, but for UCF, for so many UCF fans, I don't know if there are any really, there might be a select few. Basketball and all these other sports are just a way to pass time until like football. Like basically what you just said, like you don't really care that much. Like, I mean, I don't want to say you don't care, but I don't know. It's just you're putting all the energy that you have that you can't really put toward football right now because football's not playing. You're putting it toward basketball, and kind of sometimes talking about it like it is football, or like, the same things apply, and they don't, because UCF football, I believe, and to a less extent than maybe the last time it opened, but UCF football's job I thought was pretty valuable. UCF basketball job, don't think so, and it hasn't really been ever. So
they were getting outspent when they were in the AAC by the other AAC teams. I'm not talking Houston and Memphis. So
like Tulane, right?
Talking like East Carolina and those types of programs. So it's like, I don't know. I get where UCF fans are coming from, where this is a different animal now because they're in this league and you're rubbing shoulders with these fans where this is a big deal for them. And like, I want UCF to be good at basketball. I would love for them to be good at basketball. I like college basketball a lot. It sucks that they're never really a relevant part of it. And I was hoping they get back to the tournament this year. And obviously, barring something absolutely unhinged, that's not going to happen. But at the end of the day, it's just, you go to Texas Tech or you go to Cincinnati or obviously Kansas. And it's like a lot of these programs in the Big 12, the interest level for football and men's basketball is very close. Football is a little bit higher, but they're close. It's a chasm at UCF. I mean, football season is what everyone here is waiting for. And like you said, basketball is what you just sort of pass the time with. It's just the culture is completely and totally different. So that's why I don't overly fault UCF, or that's why I'm not slamming my fist on the table saying, why aren't you putting more money into basketball? Because the administration understands what the priority is. And maybe the trade-off is they're going to ditch Dawkins this year and they'll get to say, oh, look, we did something, and fans will rejoice because they're going to think that's going to fix something. And I will totally eat my words. If they, for some reason, attract some coach who completely turns things around, it turns out they have this way higher ceiling. But like I said, what frustrates me is with rev share kicking in this year, I do kind of see a roadmap for things being a little bit easier for them down the line. And if they do make a coaching change this year, I know fans are never going to be able to decouple those things. They're just going to go, Dawkins was the problem, and not the rules changing to make things easier for them.
Yeah. And then, but I mean, I guess they probably will have to do it anyway, but you part ways with Dawkins now, you're going to have to build a whole new team for next year. So
that's probably true no matter what, though.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking the thing's getting easier, but you're also doing it not with the same team that they've constructed now. So
yeah,
either way. This next question is also from MD Knight 2016. This one's for Christian. It says, you win the lottery and become a UCF mega donor. Are you having your money spent on new uniforms / new designs, or the players / program / facilities themselves?
I feel like the issue here is that people are going to think it's a meme when I say that I would put a lot of money into the uniform side of things, but I absolutely would. Like, yeah, sure, the other stuff I do too, but I whenever we've all fantasized about winning the lottery, right? That's a normal, healthy brain behavior. You thought about it at some point, like, what would you do? And like the one thing I always think of UCF is like, I would be like, this is your blank check for uniforms, like for all the sports, like go crazy, like go. And obviously, I'd probably donate money to something else too. Like, I don't know, like NIL, but I would want, like, how cool would it be if like UCF could literally, they just had an unlimited equipment budget, like could do freaking anything, like crank out like 19 different face masks every year and just all kinds of insane stuff.
People are going to hate you. They might already.
Right. It's my money.
Well, I don't know. Well, I know, but it was just the idea of like, think about how many different like face masks they could bring out. People are like, yeah, what about how many different players they could go out and buy?
Look good, play good. Players are going to see these insane uniforms and be like, dang, I'll take a discount to play there.
Sure. This next one is also from MD Knight. This is wrapping up the trifecta. This one's for me. It says, how would you rate the performances of the UCF players from the Combine? I don't know how in the weeds I want to get here. I do have like a mock draft roundup that I was going to do later on anyway, so I'll probably lump that in here. But I think RJ came out a clear winner. I think as far as the on-field drills and stuff, like he finished across like everything that he did. He was like top 10 among running backs. Like he ran a 4.4, which was the fourth fastest time among running backs, which I thought was among the other names around him. Like I think he was the only one who I had seen before the Combine already like getting some buzz. So I think that only helped him, and the other guys maybe went up a level, but like he also leveled up there. He was 8th in vertical among running backs, 6th in the broad jump, 5th in the shuttle, tied for 5th on the bench. I think it helped him a lot. I think he performed the best out of all of the 4 UCF guys there. I think Mac McWilliams ran a really good 40 time. And I think his stock has improved. I don't know that BJ or Kobe really helped themselves a ton. The mock drafts I've been looking at, generally, RJ's been around, like he's generally been around 4 kind of guy, around 5, but I've also seen him in round 7. I've seen the mock draft database that kind of just compiles all of the different mocks, has him projected as a 5th rounder. BJ lately more I've seen 7th round guy. The mock draft database projects him as an undrafted free agent, so he's kind of maybe late 7th round guy. Maybe he's going to end up being undrafted. Mac McWilliams, I think his stock over the last month and a half or so with the Senior Bowl and the Combine has improved. He's projected as a 7th rounder, but I've seen 5th, 6th kind of thing for him because it depends on how in demand these slot cornerbacks are, but he said, and when I was talking to him at the Combine, he said how much more comfortable he was playing in the slot where UCF didn't have him playing. So that was fun to hear him say that. And then Kobe, yeah, he's projected as a 5th rounder. I don't know if I see it, but that'd be great. I hope so. But yeah, like I said, I think RJ came away with the most buzz out of the week. So
was Kobe just bad? I don't know what happened there.
I don't think he was bad. I just don't think he did anything like I think with kind of the unfortunate thing for him is I think his tape isn't going to be as strong, and it's not always his fault. Like the quarterback play he had to deal with at several different points in his career at UCF was not great. And so when the tape isn't ideal, you're going to need to probably do a lot more, in the Senior Bowl or in the combine to kind of make people like raise some eyebrows and kind of get people to be like, oh, let me go back and look at his tape and see. And I don't know. I just don't know if he did that, but he might still be a day 3 pick. I don't really know.
Yeah, just hope for the best.
So, I hope so. I hope UCF can get 4 guys drafted. That'd be great. But obviously, I don't know. Rooting for RJ. Like he just had a really good week, and he obviously means so much to the program. Everybody wants to see him in the NFL, and I think he's going to have a good shot for it. So move on now to Chuck at UCF Coys. Come on, you Spurs. Does baseball have the highest ceiling out of all the sports? Lack of NIL not being an issue for college baseball. Florida being the biggest state for baseball talent, and seemingly a good coach, etc. I think there's an argument for it.
Yeah. Well, first off, let me just say that NIL is very much an issue in college baseball. That is definitely a thing there. College baseball has actually had one of the weirder NIL scenes since NIL became a thing because it's probably the most vast in terms of what different programs are doing. Like there are programs that do absolutely nothing for NIL in college baseball, and there are SEC programs who are handing out like 7-figure deals to players. So it's a weird space. And it's another one kind of like men's basketball that I think is going to get reined in a bit here when rev share comes into play and teams are going to figure out what they want to. But baseball, again, is some teams have started to drop their rev share plans of like the actual percentage, like, 80% is going to go to football, 10% to this, whatever. And baseball is the one sport that it seemed to really vary by school, like as far as plans that have been published by schools. Like some schools seem to be putting a lot into baseball, some not so much. So NIL is a thing there. I do think that UCF is probably in a solid position to not be like locked out on that like they have been in some other sports. I don't know. I think the saddest way I can answer this question is that 5 years ago, the sport with the highest ceiling I would have said is football, and I just don't think that's true anymore. Because 5 years ago, I could have talked myself into football getting to the point one day where they could be like an Ohio State, where they have this giant fan base and they can contend for real national titles. But the goalposts kind of got moved on them. The transfer portal and NIL changed that. More than anything, the SEC and Big Ten consolidating all the wealth and powers changed that. It's just not the world anymore. I don't think UCF ever won a national championship. So I guess just the decline of football's ceiling has maybe put baseball there.
The reason I say there's an argument, and probably, I guess is maybe, I don't want to say it's less because of baseball, but it's more because of the other sports. Like you said with football, but also basketball is obviously we've talked at length about the limits on their ceiling. I even think about like softball, where that's the team that's gone the furthest in recent years. Like they've made it to a super regional, but there are still so many there's an imbalance of power in softball, obviously, where there are these teams that like in Oklahoma, sometimes Oklahoma State, even Texas last year, where there are teams that are going like 55-8 or like 60-4, something crazy like that. And I don't know that that's going to change. I'm not like there are team programs that just have more tradition. Obviously, what UCF softball's been able to do has been impressive, and I think there is a high ceiling there, but I think it's still, I don't know, it's still kind of capped. Baseball, it's I don't know, it kind of depends. Like it's almost by default. Like maybe even I'd say more so like men's soccer or something like that having a higher ceiling, but I guess it depends on what you define as the highest ceiling. But yeah, I think baseball can be like a pretty regular tournament team, and hopefully one of these years soon they can get to a super regional and kind of push the envelope there a little bit more. But
yeah, for the record, I was going to say exactly what you said on softball. Like I don't want that to come across as softball hate at all. It's just, there are some absolute powerhouses in that sport that just kind of put a cap on what the other teams can do, and that sort of is what it is. But yeah, baseball, I don't know. It's interesting because what is baseball? Obviously, we want them to go to a regional, but what's the cap on a season UCF baseball could realistically have? in the next few years, let's say?
I guess getting to a super regional.
Yeah.
But I don't. It's hard. I think because they've only in recent years, or I guess ever really been a regional team. The idea, because if they get to a super regional, it's a best of 3 series. They win 2 out of those 3. They're in Omaha.
Yeah.
So I want to say they could get to Omaha. I don't know that they can win a national championship anytime soon, if ever. But I think they can be one of those 8 teams who kind of makes a run.
And you would know this better than me, but weird teams have won the national championship in baseball before, right? It's not.
Yeah, Coastal Carolina won in 2018, 2017. I don't know.
Right. And there was someone weird a couple years ago. Was it Ole Miss who just was okay all season and then just randomly
might have been. And it's weird because I know back-to-back years Mississippi State and Ole Miss won national championships. In baseball. But those two,
that sport has there's room there for teams that are not it's not like football where there are 8 programs who can do it, or softball, 3 programs who can do it.
The sad thing, and I think we've seen it with softball, obviously when they've made their runs, people get more invested. People are talking about softball and watching it. I do wonder, and I think people would they like a winner, so it might kind of defeat what I'm saying here. But if baseball made a run to where they were in a super regional, or if they made it to the College World Series, how many people would care?
I don't know. Man.
That makes me sad. It would be such a big thing, but I don't know. I don't know how people truly care about UCF baseball, other than time. It's passing the time. They played USF this weekend, and I saw a lot of people tweeting about it. But I think it was just because they're beating USF on Saturday and Sunday.
And what's interesting is it feels like baseball didn't get the same fan base interest boost from playing a Big 12 schedule as some other teams did. I don't know, football and men's basketball and even softball. It was there was a lot of, I don't know what the word is, just kind of instant shock of wow, that's so crazy that Kansas men's basketball is here, or softball's playing Oklahoma, or stuff like that. And baseball was just kind of yeah.
It's because I think people in general pay less attention to college baseball and know less about the brands of college baseball. And there's obviously the SEC brands are huge, and there are some in the ACC, not as many in the Big Ten, but in the Big 12, I think Oklahoma State, TCU, maybe I think Texas Tech. There are some that are that get to College World Series and maybe the Super Regionals pretty regularly. But a lot of people don't think Oklahoma State baseball. Unless you know college baseball, you're not going to know that Oklahoma State is a powerful brand. But
college baseball has always been kind of weird. It's kind of always had its sort of own niche fan base, kind of separate from college athletics.
I think it's growing a little bit, but probably not a ton. I don't know. I hope it does. I love college baseball. Next is from Gasparilla Bowl Enjoyer. That's your name forever. You better be okay with that. At Evan Lando _. If Mackenzie Milton is the quarterback for 2025, assuming the rest of the roster is the same, what would be their final record?
It's a deep question.
That's a very deep question. I don't know that I have the answer for it.
Well, what does Mackenzie Milton change? He doesn't change the whole no wide receivers thing, which is definitely something that is a factor in how well your quarterback does.
But I do also think elite quarterback play elevates average wide receivers.
I do agree, but okay. Well, let's back it up. Actually, are we assuming this is we're talking about? Are we talking about peak Mackenzie Milton here for the sake of the question?
Yeah.
This isn't if Coach Mackenzie Milton finds new eligibility or something. This is
no. I believe it's 2017, 2018 Mackenzie Milton.
Okay, I think if that were the case, if for some I don't know, there's no reality. I don't know. The time machine is invented. I don't know. For some reason, that's the case right now. I think I'd be rolling into the season with an 8-4 record prediction. Because I don't feel bad about the defense. And I do think that adding arguably the best player in program history would account for some wins.
Yeah.
Because you remember Prime Milton, he just made stuff happen. It wasn't a situation where he needed to be. I mean, he was surrounded by great talent, but the plays he extended with his legs and some of those darts he threw, it wasn't situations where, his receivers were just running wide open on every play. It was he knew how to make plays.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it boils down to an elite quarterback would make such a huge difference. And that's what he was in his prime those 2 years. He was an elite quarterback. So yeah, I think having an elite quarterback would make this team. I don't know if they win the Big 12 because I think we don't know about the wide receivers. We don't really know about the offensive line. The running back room, I think we're excited about, but it's still relatively unproven, I guess.
Yeah.
And then as much as we feel like the defense is going to be fine, we don't really know a lot of the pieces intimately, and we don't know where they're going to fit. We don't know how Alex Grinch is going to be. So, like, I can't sit here and be like, yeah, add Mackenzie Milton, and they're going to go 11-1. But I think they could go 8-4. Yeah.
I really do miss just having an elite quarterback.
Me too. We haven't
spoiled.
Had one since Dylan.
I mean, the fact that we don't talk enough about that in a 7-season span, Blake Bortles, Mackenzie Milton, and Dylan Gabriel played for UCF. Like, that was set very false expectations for what the quarterback looked like. Also, not to be an alarmist, but it's not a coincidence, right? That the type of UCF season that UCF fans want to be the standard has only ever occurred here when they've had that elite quarterback.
Yeah, it's not. It's no.
I mean, that's the way the sport works, but it is just kind of like, I don't know. This is stupid, but I remember, and we might have even talked about this on the podcast in 2022, but I really wanted them to make the Cotton Bowl that year, not just since I'm like a UCF fan and prefer when they make major bowl games, but because I really wanted to just like prove it that they didn't need the elite quarterback to still have the cool seasons. And they came close. They were a game away, literally one game away. And then unfortunately that game went the way it did. But I don't know. It's just, I just don't like the idea of, we've talked about this before, I think off the podcast, as much as I love college football, the thing that bothers me the most is how quarterback dependent it is. Like how you can kind of just like pick the teams that have the best quarterbacks and that's who's going to have the good seasons. But I don't know. I just don't like.
Has that changed in recent years?
I feel like people talk like it's changed, but then you look at who's winning the national titles and the best teams. And I don't know. There's not a lot of teams doing it without great quarterbacks.
But like, I don't know. It depends on what your definition of a great quarterback was. Because like, Will Howard and JJ McCarthy, are they great quarterbacks? JJ
McCarthy is the closest that I would say to like disproving that. I think Will Howard's better than people give him credit for. I do think JJ McCarthy was. Yeah. Well, again, it's two things here. I'm not saying like I want to see a team win with a terrible quarterback, and then I'll know. Like I know that you have to have a good quarterback to be a very good team, but I don't know. I don't like the idea of every UCF season it kind of being like you can just boil it down to, well, do they have the quarterback? If not, then there's not going to be much to talk about here. I don't know.
That's why my New Year's resolution for Scott Frost was to find that guy.
Interesting.
Any closer to doing that? I don't know.
I don't think he knows yet. I think he'll have to see spring ball.
All right, next one is from Cameron Cox at CamCox_21. Another JRP question. Is JRP in the top 10 best youth sport athletes in college football history? No.
You know what bothers me? You know what really bothers me is I said like a month or two ago, I said we're done talking about John Rice Plumlee on this podcast. And like multiple John Rice Plumlee questions. It's March of 2025, guys. We got to stop with John Rice Plumlee.
Hey, we have another one, right? Should I just skip to that one? Yeah, should I skip to that one?
Yeah.
This one's from our friend Dolly Drama. Who do you think enters the spring portal? Does JRP win the job in this current quarterback room?
All right. Who do I think enters the spring portal? All my money is on Kelly Lawson since he's already done it since being here. So I'm just assuming that there's a chance of another entry there. All right. My hot take spring portal entry is Jakari.
Jakari Brown.
Oh, yes, Jakari Brown.
Okay. I was going to say just Jakari Anderson and Damari Davis. I don't know why that's my first. I've forgotten about Jakari Brown already, so that's where my brain first.
Thank you for, by not knowing who I'm talking about, proving my point of why I fear he may enter the portal. I don't know. If you go through spring ball and it's clear that it's like a Dylan Risk, Taven Jackson battle, then like what's he going to stick around for? So, yeah, he's my pick.
That's probably not a bad shout.
Stacey Gage, maybe?
Oh, I hope not. Does JRP win the job in this quarterback room?
I don't care. Well,
that's the question. You got to answer the question.
I think that, again, which JRP? Because 2022 JRP would have been moved to wide receiver. But 2023 JRP, maybe.
He probably wins the job and then he's hurt by week 5.
I literally have in my notes, but injury's still an issue. Like, he could win the job and then he would, truck a Jacksonville State linebacker and then he'd get hurt. Like,
you got to think for future mailbags. You ask a John Rice Plumlee question, we're not answering it.
You ask a John Rice Plumlee question, we're going to go through your Twitter and find something dumb you've tweeted and make fun of you on the podcast for it. Like, there's going to be actual retribution.
You can't say that though, because people are gonna want that to happen. I don't know, like people are trying to get tweet of the week from you for some reason all the time. So
it is and I know we're guilty of it. Like, I'll bring up JRP sometimes, and I'm trying to be better about that.
Just as a slight.
I have this fear in my mind that I'm gonna be in like my 30s, and we're still gonna be talking about John Rice Plumlee. Like, we don't talk about like Jeff Godfrey like this or Justin Holman. Like, whenever the okay quarterbacks come and go, we just move on. And for some reason with John Rice Plumlee, it's like we can't let the man go.
Bro, that's only a few years away. Your 30s, so we are probably still going to be talking about it.
By the way, it's not a few years away; it's a couple years away.
Oh yeah, it's a couple years away. It's birthday month for both of us.
It is. We're having a little joint birthday. That doesn't matter. We don't talk about that on the podcast.
Like no one cares about this.
Where Bailey and I are doing the like thing you do when you're 9, where we're combining our birthday celebrations.
It's not just us either. There's
also another one
March
of our
birthday.
friends. Yeah, who's also a March birthday. So.
Glad everybody knows that now.
But my issue with it is that the day that we're doing it is not the day closest to, like, there is a birthday of the 3 that is closer to the day we're doing it than mine, and that bothers me because I feel like that's gonna like dampen my third of the celebration.
It's the furthest away from mine. I do not care. So
yeah, well, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So what does that mean? You're threatening to ruin the day for everyone if they're not treating you the best?
Oh, I've made a birthday scene here and there over the years. I can throw another one together.
Well, now the next mailbag question is, what birthday scenes have you made, Christian? Everyone's going to want to know what you're talking about there. We're already 45 minutes in, and we have like 10 more questions to get to. This one's from G Hampton at G Hampton 1989. What would more investment in a non-football program look like at UCF? Increasing NIL/contributions feels like the easy answer. However, it seems like Christian has more thoughts on the topic when something like basketball or volleyball comes up on the pod. I'm confused by this question. I'll throw it to you because it seems to be targeted at you.
I know. I'm sensing a little bit of like, I don't know. Anger's not the right word. A little bit of like, what do you want about maybe energy from this question with me? Because I feel like I made some comments here and there. I mean, what would investment in a program that isn't football look like at UCF? Now, I will say that I don't think anymore with rev share. I'm not just going to jump to increasing NIL budget. And increasing NIL budget was always a hard answer for those sports because, like I said, whenever UCF got more NIL money, I think we were all like, great, glad you have that. Time to get more football players. So, But I do think that UCF has been in, and I think this has changed in the Mahadri era just because of, the conference they're in has changed, but UCF was always like my whole childhood. The strategy was just like, get there as fast as you can. Like in the time I've been on this earth, UCF has gone from an independent FBS program with no stadium to what it is now. And it was always like, I don't want to say cutting corners because that sounds derogatory, but it was like the Bounce House is not the prettiest stadium in the country. The Field House is not the prettiest indoor practice facility in the country. It was always just getting stuff done as fast as possible to try to rise. And it worked. It worked. They got there. But I think the cost of that was the other sports in a lot of ways. It's not a secret that I don't think UCF invests in a lot of these programs the way that other power conference programs do. And it comes back to me on there are programs I'd like to see UCF put more money into. I'd like UCF to put more money into basketball. I'd like UCF to put more money into sports like volleyball is another one that he referenced. And I'm not just talking about, because rev share is rev share at this point, that while players get paid now, and that's become a huge part of the game, it hasn't changed the actual institutional support side of things and putting money into things like recruiting and facilities and all that stuff. And I don't know what it looks like because the truth is, as long as UCF's in catch-up mode, which they still largely are in, every time they get a new windfall, it's got to go to football. So what it looks like for me is UCF getting to a point where football is successful enough that that's not automatically where all the new money needs to go to. And I don't know how close they are to that. And honestly, it's part of a fan base voting thing too. Like if fans, I don't know, if for some freaking reason, the city of Orlando decided it loves volleyball and every volleyball game at the venue was absolutely sold out and there's a huge volleyball presence on social media. Yeah, UCF would probably put more money towards volleyball. But as we just talked about with baseball and all these sports, it's like UCF fans in general don't really care a lot about the non-football sports, especially not like there are cultures around these sports at some other Big 12 schools, at some other Power 4 schools. I think the closest UCF's come to building that is the softball team. So as long as that continues, I don't really see the path to major investment from athletics because there's no reason for them to do it.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And I don't really have much more to add, plus the fact that we do have a million more questions to get to. But no, I think that's
stressed about the question count.
That's a lot of the case. But with, speaking of other sports, other non-football sports, we did get the next question from William Stevenson at WillStep99. What are your expectations for softball and baseball this season? I don't know. Baseball is off to a pretty good start. They're 8-3. I think they made the tournament last year. I think making the tournament again this year, and hopefully making it by kind of a wider margin. I think it was kind of down to the wire a little bit last year. They had to do some work in the conference tournament to secure their spot. I think and it all depends once conference play starts if they can continue to play well. But softball, with as much turnover as there was with softball, I wasn't really expecting them to go back to the tournament again. And I'm still not sure because we've seen them play pretty well, but we've also seen them when they come up against, more of these brands, they are losing those games a little more lopsidedly maybe. So I don't know. I think the tournament would be nice, but they might be like right on the bubble, which I think is okay this year. Like they lost like a few of the most like influential players in program history. So it's hard to keep that streak going. But do you have any differing opinions on those?
Not really. I mean, like to your point, softball, this was always supposed to be a down year, and I've been very pleasantly surprised with how competitive they've been early, and they obviously have a strong record right now. But to your point, when they've played the top tier teams, it hasn't gone awesome. I don't really know what conference play is going to look like for them, which it's a little bit because this is also
starts this week.
Yeah, I was convinced you were talking to someone off screen when you looked over and nodded your head, and for some reason in my head, I didn't even know who you could be talking to. I'm like, the man lives alone, but I was just convinced of it. But Oklahoma's out of the league. The barrier on top isn't there, and I don't think that's something we thought they were going to take advantage of this year necessarily. But yeah, like sneak into the tournament for them, that's a big win for me. Baseball, where I'm at is I have we talked about how I operate as a baseball fan. I just don't really know how the program works, and then just demand high level success. Bailey was getting mad at me because they lost the first game to USF, and I was like heavily out on Wallace to Bailey via text, kind of jokingly, but also I was pretty pissed. And don't worry, it worked out the rest of the weekend.
I told you yesterday I was going to the last game of the series, and you said that Wallace was coaching for his job. And I think at that point you were doing it just because you knew it would piss me off. But
that was, to be clear, now that you've said on the podcast, that was a joke, obviously. But because I could just tell you on Friday I was annoyed, and I could tell you're getting pissed by my comments. So I was like, let's see how we can up the ante over the weekend. But my expectations for baseball this year are break the Lovelady curse, because much like Rich Wallace last year, Greg Lovelady had a very strong first season, and they went to the tournament. And until Rich Wallace backs it up this year, I'm burnt on that. I'm convinced that it could just be the same thing again, where we're just chasing the high of that first season and they never get back there. So go back to the tournament, show that it was more than
they
1
need
year.
to not miss the tournament by like a game or two 3 years in a row like Lovelady did.
Yeah, literally just the Lovelady era was infuriating to me in particular as someone who didn't know a lot about it, so would just get mad that the results weren't what I wanted. But I really would like Wallace to make the tournament this year, and we can establish that he's not a one-hit wonder and start building towards a national championship here at UCF.
I agree. Love it.
I love when we talk about baseball because I just immediately become the type of fan I hate. Like the people I can't stand for men's basketball is exactly how I am for baseball.
I think I brought that up to you at one point. You were like, yeah, what about it? And I was like, oh, okay, so you're just going to own it. That sucks.
Well, I just don't even know how to like if you've listened to this podcast for any amount of time, you should know, I don't even know how baseball works. Like I know like the principles of it, but like, I don't know what like UCF's supposed to do to like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, this is not the sport for me to talk about. So I'm just like, yeah, I hope they're good.
Yeah. Next one's from Lucas Bush at Bush E. Lucas. He said, if you become the if you become the UCF AD tomorrow, what is your first move? I think we're gonna have the same answer.
Cashing my paycheck and then bringing back pewter jerseys.
Okay, I just wrote pewter.
Well, so I actually struggled with this question weirdly. My thing.
I didn't. My immediate thought was pewter.
So mine was too, and I have that written down here. But like, I don't know what I do on day one. Like, ask for a tour. Like, I don't know. I feel like that. There's not like some. I don't think there's some
tour happens during the interview process. I think.
Does it? I don't know. There's not some pressing UCF athletics thing where I'm like, man, I got to get in there and fix this ASAP. I feel like day one would be a lot of like, so how does this work? What's my password? You know?
Yeah, I guess it is. They said if you become the UCF AD tomorrow, so you don't have much time to prep. So I'm probably I'm just moving into my office. And
I would. I mean, I'm gonna level with you. I would be like, I would probably just be like, yeah, I guess I need to tour the facilities. And they're like, okay, well, this is your office. And I'd be like, let's start with the equipment room. And they'd be like, what? And I'm like, let's just start there. And then I'd probably spend most of the day in there.
Yeah. Next one's also AD related. Caden at Caden Carter 318 says, what are some things Terry could do to win back the fan base? Pewter.
How many questions can we make Pewter the answer?
That's literally 3 already.
I think he should try to make more TikToks. Bring that back. And the fans will respond.
Don't think that anyone has any patience for that anymore.
I have 2 serious answers for this one.
Go ahead.
The first is that I'm not sure that he can, because I think it's kind of just become a meme at this point with a lot of the fans. Like every time there's some kind of screw up or anything, it's just kind of like, oh, there goes Terry. Like, I don't know. That's a hard like he just kind of has that reputation with the fan base at this point. The second part to this answer on how to actually do it is just win football games. Like if Frost came out and went 9-3 in year 1 and then 10-2 in year 2, everyone's going to love Mahajer. Like that's just how this works. It's not like Mahajer's done some unforgivable sin to the fan base. It's just the football team hasn't been good. That's really all it boils down to.
Yeah, I think so. I think part of it is just get out of your own way. Don't do things like the whole ticket thing. And I don't know. A lot of problems that Mahajer and this administration have had in the last few years have been self-inflicted. They're just doing a lot of it to themselves. So kind of just like maybe just be quiet for a little bit and, do some work behind the scenes. And we don't want to hear from you. Which I know the last time we didn't hear from Terry, everybody freaked out. So maybe that's not.
Well, okay, it's okay to not hear from the AD when it's like April. It's not so okay to not hear from the AD when like the coach quits to take FSU's OC job. You have no idea what's happening, and he's just vanished from the face of the earth.
UCF still hasn't acknowledged that, though. I don't think so.
No, according to UCF officially, Gus Malzahn, no official word that he's gone. Could still be here. If you listen to the Space Nights when Terry Mahajer went on to discuss the ticket thing, he made like very clear, perhaps too clear, that it wasn't his idea or wasn't his thing, and should not have been rolled out that way. So there you go.
Other thing that he could do to win back the fan base: don't throw all your employees under the bus.
No, it's funny because I don't want to like overly critique like a Spaces interview, but it was a lot of like him saying, "I take full responsibility for this," and then explaining why it was not his fault.
Yeah. Actually kind of sounds like a coach.
Yeah.
That happens a lot. This is from
which I do kind of feel like I don't know if there's like that is annoying when something happens and it's now your problem and it was not something that you did, but at the same time, like people are going to be mad at the face of the administration. That's
and when you're in a leadership role, you have to expect that.
You just have to say like, yeah, sorry, we screwed up and move on.
Yeah, because you're not going to have the ticket office doing interviews or like jumping on Spaces. So like, yeah, that's your thing.
I forgot that because you weren't listening to the Space and I was. No. And at one point he said on it, he was like, and we're going to have, UCF's ticket reps were reaching out to everyone who got the email to make it right. And I think they're actually almost done doing that. And so I immediately text you and I go, did you get a call from UCF ticket rep? And you replied, yes. And I answered and they immediately hung up on me.
So do you remember what I told you after that?
I don't remember.
That my phone, like 8 hours later, told me I had a voicemail from them. So I have no idea what happened with my phone on that front, but I did answer the phone and then immediately like the call dropped. So I don't know if I didn't answer it till later, like it was too late or what, but I don't know. I think they might have told me to call them back, and I don't think I ever did. Well, I know I never did. So.
Oh, I thought you were going to call them back because I remember we talked about this.
I was, and I never did. It was a busy time right around then because that was right when I was like finishing up some work before I went to Indy, and yeah, I never.
It's one of my last
kind of forgot
days.
It all happened.
One of my last pre-pneumonia days. I just didn't know it. I really wanted you to call them back and just go like full Karen about it, like be like, I'm a host
I could never
of a UCF podcast.
I'd probably apologize to them.
That would be very much your personality to be like, you know what, you're right. I shouldn't have sold those tickets. Like I'd
over-explain myself. I'd be like, the one week there's a hurricane, the other week I was sick, and I would just like start explaining. It's like, oh, then somebody gave me these tickets, and they'd be like, we don't really care. We're just calling to apologize to you. And I was like, oh.
The sport ticket rep is like, I've got 900 calls to make, and I'm stuck talking to this guy who's got to explain ticket by ticket why it's okay.
Yeah. All right. Next one comes from the agenda at UCF Agenda. When is the transfer draft? I want to clear my schedule that day. I do want to say the answer I have to this, two answers. One, never. Two, this showed up under our tweet asking for questions as probable spam. So I feel about the question, so that's fair. Probable spam.
Are we definitely not doing the transfer draft?
I thought you were also on board about not doing it anymore.
I'm pretty over it. I'm very
over it. But all of a sudden, us saying that we're never going to do it or we're not going to do it, multiple people ask for it.
Which bothers me because let me tell you right now, there is no, in 4 years, 4+ years of this podcast, there is no episode format that we have gotten more negative feedback on than the draft episodes. Like that is like the one type of episode that people regularly leave comments and are like, I didn't like this. So we stopped doing it. And now people are upset we're not doing it.
It's become a meme because like they want us to do it so that we can like leave somebody off or so that we can have bad drafts, both of us, and then be like, wow, I can't believe you didn't take this player based on this information that I know that you don't know.
I'm okay doing it, but I want the fans to have some skin in the game. Like I want want some of our listeners to have to like either, I don't know how that works, like a Twitter poll or something. Like you gotta put something on the line here if we're gonna do it again. It's not just gonna be us looking stupid. We want you to look stupid with us.
See, I don't like this because now you've reopened the door to doing it. We had just said we're not going to do it anymore. You said you were over it. I said never. Then you just reopened the door.
We'll see. It's long off season.
This one's from the display name was Kobe Bryantini. It's a great reference. At Cass City J. What does a successful season look like for you in year one? I think we didn't we do an episode on this?
Pretty sure we had a whole episode. Can we just link here? I'll just do some editing and that episode will just play in full right now. You can
so people are going to log in and be like, Pegasus Podcast went 2.5 hours today? Yeah, I don't really remember what I said, but I mean, a bowl game would be extra.
I think there's different versions of success. Yeah. I mean, I think a bowl game.
We don't need to do the podcast that we already did all over.
Yeah, we're fine. Yeah, bowl game would be great. Finding a quarterback would be great. Don't be embarrassing.
Yeah, that's good. This is another multi-part question. This one's from Marcus. One says, any chance Johnny gets to keep his job and possibly get some more money to compete in the Big 12? And we kind of answered that, but not really. I think there's definitely a chance. About the more money part, I don't. And I guess there is. Yeah, I guess there is, depending on, the cap, whatever, the hard cap and all that. Maybe he'll get a little bit more, but.
That was actually another thing from Space Nights was Majer was asked how he would grade the men's basketball season, and he said C.
And they lost like 2 more games in a row after that, right?
No, they won a couple. Then they lost a couple.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Hey, they don't kick you out of school for getting C's.
That's true. I don't know. They might kick Dawkins out of school for getting C, but
don't really keep you on the honor roll either. But yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know what's going to happen. Like I said, I think I'm leaning towards it. I'm wondering if Dawkins is just going to retire because maybe he.
But do you think he's going to retire, or do you think it's going to be, hey man, why don't you retire?
Maybe a little bit of both. I don't know. I'm as the season winds down and the losses have piled up, I'm having a harder time finding the path to him being back next year, especially just because of the contract he's on and how easy it is for UCF to get out of it right now. Now, you could argue if you're Majer, and this is just like playing devil's advocate basically, but is it easier? Like the second you hire, like you're already out on the line here with Frost, and do you really want to be out on the line with the 2 major coaches at the same time, like with your hires,
Unfortunately, that's going to give UCF fans more ammunition because they're going to want Dawkins gone even more now because they're going to want Dawkins gone so there's a new coach, and they're almost going to want the new coach to fail so that if Frost and the new coach fail, then they can get a quicker exit from Terry because then Terry will get fired.
I would never, ever root for a UCF program to not have success. But
I think some people would.
The closest I will ever come will be if and when they fire Dawkins with men's basketball. Less because I want men's basketball to fail, but more just because it's like a take I have religiously held for years will be heavily on the line. But I'll say in the day, I just want the basketball team to be good. I'm just skeptical that a coaching change is going to change much of anything.
Yeah, I agree. The other one from this, let's see, number 2. Are you and this is in response to you. So basically, are you guys going to spring practice? If so, when can we expect opinion/reporting of it? Since there's no spring game, I don't know. They maybe. Well, you said I think Michelle was the one who reported in the Orlando Sentinel that they might have some open practices. Depending on when they hold those, I would like to make a trip up to Orlando for one of them, but it just depends on when they are.
Yeah, I'm planning on trying out for the team, so I'll be there.
Great.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get out to a couple of the accesses. Starts next Tuesday, I believe, right? The 11th?
I don't know. I think so. There was a coach that posted a whole schedule and then deleted it.
Yeah, I forgot about that. We had our annual tradition of UCF assistant coach posts the entire schedule and then realizes that's not supposed to be public and takes it down. But yeah.
So I don't know, honestly.
I'm looking at my screenshot of the delete.
Oh, you screenshotted it? Because I never even screenshot it. I was looking for it yesterday, and I could not find it.
No, because the second I saw it, I was like, that's not supposed to be out there. And I took a screenshot and showed if it was deleted like an hour later. Tuesday, March 11th is the first practice. The first, it doesn't say which ones are
scrimmages. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about open practices or scrimmages. So
yeah,
depends. But I would like to. One, because I would just like to come back to Orlando and just visit and hang out. But also, Yeah, I'd like to go to a scrimmage. It'd be cool.
Yeah, Bailey decreed to me that he was going to come visit me for the UCF Iowa State men's basketball game. If UCF went 2-1?
If they went 2-1 over that stretch and they went 0-3.
Yeah, that was fun.
And then even after that, I was going to come for the Utah game, and that's when I was like, "Hey, when are you going to Vegas again?" And you were like, "These dates." And I was like, "Okay, well, guess I'm not going to the Utah game."
We're killing
so
it.
I went through the whole basketball season without going to a game, which kind of makes me really sad. But
I think
my personal goal or my personal resolution for the UCF resolutions pod we did was, again, to make it to 5 non-football events. I made it to 3 so far. I had 2 softball games and a baseball game, so I'm on the right track. This one's from DJP at DJP_UCF. With the stadium being worked on, do you think we will see seat expansion before the rematch with UF in 2030?
Nope.
No. I think they're currently focused on trying to get UCF fans to not sell their tickets to non-UCF fans. I don't think they want more opportunity for, that kind of stuff to happen. I don't know.
What you're going to see more of is the luxury seating. That's the way not just UCF, but college athletics as a whole is trending. That's where they're trying to make the money now. That's why they're building the new tower with all of its, what is it, like the skyboxes and stuff and all this crazy stuff. Actual stadium expansion is kind of done as a concept. No one's really doing that anymore. I don't think the bounce house is going to be getting bigger, not just anytime soon, but maybe ever. I think you're probably going to see more. I mean, what you're seeing mainly around college athletics now are contractions. And honestly, it's not a surprise because like attendance for sports kind of peaked in like the 80s and 90s. And it's not a secret that like when we moved from like SD television, where like it used to be like being in the stadium was the ultimate game day experience. Now for a lot of people, it's being on your couch in the cool weather with your HD TV and your 90 million insane camera angles and commentary and knowing exactly like it's like the better experience for a lot of people now is at home. So it's
so easy to not go to games anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's so much easier. It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot more comfortable to not do it, but some of us still just like being in the atmosphere, and that's why I still make the trip as much as I can. But the weekends where I don't make a trip, like it's like, yeah, I kind of have some FOMO. It's like, oh, I would like to be in the bounce house. That'd be great. But it's also more comfortable on my couch and in the air conditioning and not having to pay however much money for food. Like it's way more convenient to be at home.
Which is why the new things UCF is building in the stadium are areas that have couches and air conditioning and are
going to cost. They're going to price the people who. We don't have to get into all that, but it's going to be too expensive for a lot of people. So, last question we have from UCF Zach at UCF_Zach. I think I'm back in on him. I don't remember. There was a time where I said I was out on him because of a meme he made, and then I think I was back in. Can't really remember where the status is right now, but he said, y'all are both in marketing. I assume your professional opinion is that UCF's football brand could be better. Some free consulting for UCF. How would you market this new team to get the wider CFB audience more interested? This was the one we kind of touched on a little bit earlier with the pizza parties or whatever.
Yeah. Apparently our answer is have parties.
Yeah.
I don't know. Scott Frost could unlock his Twitter account. That could be a step in the right direction. Now, I feel like I got to say, because first off, cards on the table, not the type brand marketing, not the type of marketing Bailey or I are in any way, shape, or form. But I feel like I got to be clear that when I've talked about before on this podcast of UCF's brand declining, there's 2 different types of brand here. There's like the brand that UCF puts out and how it markets itself to its fan base and what it tries to be. And there's its brand in college football. When I talk about the decline, I'm talking about UCF standing in college football. Like when you look at how much people talked about UCF and what they thought of UCF in 2018 or 2019, even 2020, 2021 to what it is now, it's fallen off a cliff. And the only way to change that is to win more games. Like when you talk about what can UCF do to get wider CFB audience more interested, there's nothing you can do to get other fan bases to be interested in what you're doing except win games. That's kind of it, and I think UCF's done a really good job of finding creative ways to stay in the spotlight. Like, I can't believe it. I'm about to bring up John Rice frickin' Plumlee, but like when the whole extravaganza of him playing in the baseball game and then running to the spring game and throwing the touchdown and all the content that came out of that, or like the QR codes, like they find ways to capitalize and like get attention where they can. But all of that is
they just did it this weekend.
Yeah, with RJ Harvey.
The RJ Harvey 40 video that turns into, it's an edit of him, and as he's running the 40, turns into one of his touchdown runs. Amazing. Like you and I both said it. You said it before we got on the podcast, and you took the words out of my mouth. You said it was like one of the coolest things you've ever seen, and I agree. because I'd never seen anything like that. And you're seeing like there's random brands. Like I think DraftKings, Hard Rock, like a bunch of different brands.
Barstool tweeted it.
Yeah, Barstool tweets. Like everybody's tweeting that clip and being like, look at UCF's edit. And so UCF is still relevant out there in some ways. But yeah, the answer is to win more games.
All of that is secondary to winning games. Like everything UCF does from that perspective is a bigger deal when the team is good. It is very hard to get people to care about a 4-8 team. Now, as far as like local brand, or as far as how UCF markets itself to, its own fan base, I think this is sort of a redesign of that period, right? Because now you have to see what they're going to be under Frost. I mean, under Gus, it started with the future of college football is here. That ended up being not so true, but it worked at the time. But I don't know. I think that like a lot of the fan base is like kind of ready for it. It feels like UCF maybe lost some of the feistiness under Gus, and I feel like that was just part. I mean, we talked about what UCF's identity was under Gus, and I think you hit the nail on the head. You said the identity was Gus. It was Gus Malzahn's UCF. And I don't know if Scott Frost's UCF works, like because Scott Frost is not a brand, but I think just I think it just bringing back those 2017 vibes, just having him here is what fans are kind of in the mood for.
And you don't have to do what you did back then, but like when you think about it, obviously the brand under Frost before the winning was UCF Fat or UCF Fast, UCF Fierce, and under Heupel, I'm trying to remember, was it just I don't remember exactly what they used. They used well, I don't know. He would always say, what did he say? Be the best.
We're in a race against ourselves to be the best that we can be as fast as we can be. Violent, disruptive, relentlessness. Go 1-0. If you're juiceless,
yeah, go 1-0. That was more the UCF brand under Frost or under Heupel, and then it was just under Gus. It was Gus.
Well, it's interesting because the UCF brand upheaval came. I don't know. I feel like it was more of a Danny White thing than a Frost thing, but it was that 2015 to 2016 calendar switch where suddenly it was like the new uniforms, and UCF has gone from just like, a vanilla ice cream version of a college football program. It's just kind of whatever to we're fast and we're cool and we're innovative and we're bleeding edge. And I don't think UCF's ever lost that entirely. I think what changed with Mahajer and Gus coming in was UCF started acting a little more establishment. Like they went a little bit, we're less plucky underdog and more like, yeah, we do belong here. And I don't know. I think under Frost, it's just getting back to like, we're the underdog and we know it. Because that's what they are again. I mean, this is not a team. This is not a program that anyone's talking about right now. And just embracing that and hoping it works well again is kind of all you can do.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for football. It's so far away.
I'm not even close to being excited. It just feels like a lifetime away right now. I hate the time of year we're in.
I don't know, for some reason, some of these questions just made me start thinking about the fall. And I was like, oh, man, that's further away than I want it to be.
It's going to really suck if they're terrible. Like, that's going to really be bad for everyone. And I hope they're not, but,
I hope not. That's it for the questions. We'll jump into really quick football news. Just a couple of commitments. Grad transfer long snapper Dalton Riggs committed to UCF. And then 2026 three-star linebacker Kaimani Morales committed to UCF as well. So 2 commits, one for the present, one for the future. Game of the week, talked about UCF baseball quite a bit. Actually, this is probably the most we've talked about UCF baseball on an episode, other than like the special preview edition I did 2 years ago, I think, that not a lot of people listen to, I don't think. Game of the week, UCF baseball, 8-3. They're hosting number 6 Florida, who is 11-1. Hosting them on Tuesday at 6:00. Florida's first visit to Orlando since 2018. Famously, they stopped wanting to come to UCF because UCF kept beating them, and so they would only schedule UCF to play in Gainesville. And UCF kept beating them in Gainesville, too. UCF has won 5 in a row against Florida, trying to make it 6. I expect it's going to be packed there tomorrow night. This is the kind of moment where I wish I could be there, but I will not be. But I encourage everyone who can go because it'll be fun. Tweet of the week.
Nothing stopping you. You could drive in. Tweet of the week.
I have lightning tickets, so there is something stopping me.
You're making a choice. Tweet of the week this week goes to, let's stick on baseball, goes to @BullsNationCFB or SoFlo. I think you've seen this account if you're on Twitter. Pretty awful. After the UCF USF. But by the way, I just have to say I love that the War on I-4 has been reduced to a single baseball series once a year. I think it's kind of like marinating the rivalry. Like it's like pressure cooking it into one very weird moment. And I'm not going to lie to you, the first game didn't go well. UCF got run ruled, lost 13-3. I texted you things about Rich Wallace that I probably regret. But Bulls Nation CFB took that time to reply to UCF baseball on Twitter and say, "Run ruled, y'all," in all caps with far too many laughing emojis to be necessary. Big 12 and still can't beat us. I liked the still can't beat us because did UCF not win this series last year when they played?
They did, and then the year before that, well, they weren't in the Big 12 yet, but yeah, the year before that, they won 4 out of 6. So
I enjoy the still can't beat us. Like, this has been a problem. But anyway, unfortunately for Bulls Nation CFB, UCF baseball had a very good rest of the weekend and absolutely annihilated, run-ruled USF in both of the following games. The combined score was 24 runs to 3. Won the series, made USF look like the sad, pathetic little brother, worthless to the world that they are. And that's pretty much where things are at. So this was a good lesson for Bulls Nation CFB. It's okay to trash talk, but when you're a fan of USF, you ought to know the disappointment is coming. So
it's also a good reminder that weekend series are series. They are 3 games, and maybe don't do a complete victory lap after 1 game. So, yeah.
USF basketball also lost to FAU basketball while that was going on. So bad time to be a Bull in general.
It was one of the more bizarre series I think I've ever seen in college baseball. I don't think I've ever seen 3 straight games not make it past the 7th inning because there was a run rule, and it not just being one team. Like the USF run ruling UCF on Friday night, I was like, wait, okay, that sucks. And then I'm getting ready to fly home from Indy on Saturday evening, and I'm checking the score as I'm getting on the plane, and it was like I wanted to see so I woke up. Full disclosure, I woke up. There's a guy on our staff computer report. I woke up Saturday morning to a screenshot of just 13-3 score from Friday. I was like, that sucks. I didn't acknowledge it, and then before I got on the plane, I hoped the game would end in a run rule, and it did. So I screenshotted UCF's graphic, replied to that text. Then I went to the game yesterday, another run rule, and reply to that same graphic again. So yeah, no, I don't think I've ever seen a 3-game series only go 21 innings. But UCF won the series, and that's it for the War on I-4 for, I guess, another year.
USF batted everything.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back next week with episode 259. Until then, you can find us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at @ByCASimmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. Thank you guys so much for being with us, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.